Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Tonight we have a very different show for you. It's actually going to be videotaped in 3 segments, one for each party in the House of Representatives. I have Brian Savage, who's the House Minority Whip for the Republicans. I think he goes by the title of Assistant Minority Leader. Jill Krowinski, who's the House Majority Leader for the Democrats, and Robin Chestnut-Tan-German, who's the House Majority Leader for the Progressives. We have invited these legislators here to talk about their priorities for 2017 and a little about their party platform. A platform, I don't know if many of you know this, but it entails a great deal of work. Every line is thought about, every priority, every goal that the party wants to achieve. And then the platform is voted on by all of the members of the party at their annual meeting. The House of Representatives consists of 150 legislators, each one represents 4,100 Vermonters each. There are 83 Democrats, 7 Progressives, and 53 Republicans, and 7 independents. The Democrats are the majority party, obviously, and each party holds what they call a caucus, where all the members get together to talk about what their priorities are. There's a set meeting every week at a certain time, but then caucuses are called for emergencies, to discuss a bill that's on the House floor, how they want to handle it, and they also vote on elected officials, who's going to be their leaders, assistant leaders, pretty much anything that the caucus wants to talk about. The leader title is obviously, the whip title is interesting. Wikipedia says it's the party's enforcer, but here in Vermont it's traditionally looked on as an assistant to the leader. As long as the whip really knows how everybody is going to vote on a bill, that's the primary job of the whip, so that when a bill comes to the floor there are no surprises. So my first guest tonight is Brian Savage, who's the House Minority Leader, and I welcome Brian. I've worked with him for years past, and Brian, welcome. Questions for you.
Sure.
So first one is, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the legislature, and the most important thing, which kills me, is what do you do when you're not in the State House, like to make money?
Well, first of all, I'm from Swanton. I represent the Swanton and Sheldon, or Franklin 4 legislative district. Lifelong resident of Swanton, and I'm beginning my 5th term in the House this winter, having first taken office in January 2009. For 33 years, I was employed in the banking industry, most of which was done right in my hometown of Swanton, about 30 years of that. And then since 2007, I've owned and operated my own small business and municipal consulting firm, and that I will also mention it will become also political consulting after I'm no longer in the House. And I'm planning ahead. I figure I'm probably as well qualified to do political consulting after all these stints. So that's how I make some money, and you can always tell when it's an election year, because my business revenue is down considerably.
Because you're out knocking on doors,
right?
As you should be.
Right.
That's great. It amazes me the businesses that people have in the State House, legislators, and they still have to go home and do a 40-hour-a-week job. So.
Yes, and I cram in everything on the weekend.
Right.
And but modern technology being what it is, I can do a tremendous amount of work here in the evening as well.
Yeah, right.
But I have a very supportive wife.
Oh, we love that. That's a nice thing to say.
Kind of along that theme, what prompted you to become a leader in your party and take on a lot of additional responsibility up above and beyond your role as a legislator?
Well, it was midway through my 2nd term that the then assistant minority leader decided to step down as the assistant minority leader. And I was approached. We were having a caucus prior to the session. I think it was in early December. I was approached by several individuals of the caucus and said that I should consider, and they wanted me to consider that. So I thought about it. I said, well, I'm not going to give you an answer right now. Can I at least talk to my wife and family about it? And as it happened out, the following day, which was a Sunday, we had a family dinner, And so I mentioned it, and my kids, I have 3, they're all adults, they were all very supportive, as was my wife, and so the rest is history.
There you go.
And here we are.
All that extra money they give you for
yes,
doing extra work,
it's
right?
a tremendous amount.
There's none, in case anybody thought I was serious. So we were talking about the caucus and talking about the challenges ahead for you this year. What are the Republican caucus priorities this year?
Well, really, the priorities of the Republican caucus this year have pretty much remained unchanged as they have in prior sessions. And it's safe to say, probably without exception, every single member of our caucus, while either on the campaign trail or out and about in the community, are hearing the same thing, right. That they are concerns of their constituents for a more affordable Vermont, property tax relief, economic development to provide good-paying jobs, affordable health care, and preservation of school choice in the towns that have school choice.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Oh, that is a
we
big,
just did a show on that.
issue.
It was a very
that
interesting
is a
show.
Very big issue. And one of the towns in my district, Sheldon, does have school choice for high school students. So that is very, very much on their minds.
And I think I would think most of the people that ran last year heard pretty much the same thing in your caucus.
Right. Nobody's disagreed with us in our caucus when we've all said this same stuff. So that's primarily what it is.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. So what are the key bills that we should be keeping an eye out for that will support the priorities that your caucus has laid out?
Okay. Well, very few. There's a lot of bills being worked on and being drafted, I'm sure, as we speak. But very few have been actually introduced yet. But certainly, without exception, of course, we're all anxiously awaiting the governor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2018. There will be a number of economic development bills, I'm sure, that will come out this year, as well as the education bills that we had mentioned. I know I've signed on to a bill to extend by 1 year the drop dead date, if you would, the deadline for Act 46. And we also have to take a look at what's going to be happening in Washington after this coming Friday, and see how we're going to be able to, how that will affect Vermont and any of the policy changes in the federal level, and how that's going to affect Vermont, especially in areas of health care, and how we'll have to address any potential changes.
Because last year Don Turner, who's the actual minority leader, came on, and by the end of the session you had a laundry list of bills that were right on target to support your priorities, and I'm assuming that we'll see a repeat of those introduction of
yes, you will be
types of bills.
I'm sure. That's the beauty of it. We don't give up. If we didn't get success with a lot of those bills, we'll just keep trying and have them redrafted and re-entered.
That's great. When you're talking about knocking on doors and stuff, how do you encourage your caucus to reach out to the people that have elected you and supported you and keep them find out what they want?
Well, there's a variety of ways with which, and first of all, we always encourage the caucus to certainly, the members to make sure they answer their emails, get out there on social media. I'm not a Twitter person, but certainly Facebook. I can actually communicate more. I communicate more on Facebook now than I do any other means.
You're a good Facebook.
The email blast. There's conventional op-eds in the local papers. And we encourage people from throughout the state to either, and I'm talking Vermonters here, voters, if they've got any questions, to contact their local representative. If they feel frustrated, and there's a number of Vermonters out there who feel they're not being represented by their representative or their senator, well, contact one of us.
Good.
And we certainly will get back to you.
You have your own website, don't you? The Republican.
Yes, there is a Republican House website, and also the House Republicans also have a Facebook page. So we try to communicate out through that way. And the other thing, we also encourage anyone who may be interested in running, and if they consider themselves a Republican and align with our philosophies, we go through this every 2 years, and it's never too early to start thinking about
absolutely
2 years from now.
Name recognition.
Is to get in contact with one of us, be it somebody who's in your local area or a member of leadership. And we'd be happy to meet with you and answer any questions that they would have and try to encourage them to seek office.
Yeah. Good.
So let's talk a little bit about your party's platform. Is there, a lot of effort clearly goes into preparing a platform, developing it, voting on it. Every party votes on their platform, or they have a committee that writes it. A lot of people, I think, don't even realize that parties, state parties at least, have their own platforms in place. So what do you do to help awareness from the public around what your platform is and draw attention to it?
Well, first of all, our platform, the Republican Party's platform, is out on the web. And I'm going to have to look here just for a second to make sure I give you the correct web address. It's vtgop.org. And so they can simply go to that, and it goes into detail as to what our platform is. But the high points, first of all, the Vermont Republican Party embraces, obviously, the principles of the United States and the Vermont State Constitution, and it's the platform is built on those documents as the foundation. We believe in personal liberty and responsibility, economic freedom and opportunity, responsible and responsive government, safe, healthy communities and an environment with safe neighborhoods, strong and healthy families, the wise stewardship of our land and air and waterways, and health care. We support the efforts to achieve the accessible and affordable health care without rationing or making drastic cuts to programs that people are accustomed to receiving. And then a well-educated citizenry. We believe that citizens thrive, and the nation and the state as a whole will thrive with well-educated, high-quality, and having easy access to high-quality education. So that's, just the very brief overview. There's certainly several subcategories for each one of those, and we could go on here, I'm sure, half a night.
That could be the show. And I would encourage you to go to vtgop.org. The platform is much different than in past platforms, because it really sticks almost to the economic and financial aspects of things. Doesn't touch as much on social issues as it has in the past.
Right.
And each one of the categories that Brian talked about is flushed out in greater detail.
Right.
And what's interesting to me, because in preparation for this show, we printed out the Democratic platform and the Progressive platform. And there is a lot of overlap, because I think while they were knocking on doors, they heard the same thing the Republicans did. I think it's the devil's in the details about how you implement those things. But do you see a lot of overlap? Have you looked at their platforms?
I have looked at them. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at them prior to coming on the show.
Well, I'm glad we got you to do that.
But there are some overlaps, and it kind of goes back to something that was told to me years ago, about 10 years ago, by a former representative who was from my district, who has since unfortunately passed away. As former Representative Frank DePrato.
Oh, right. Yeah, that goes back a few years.
It goes back a few years, and he was a lifelong friend of my parents, and actually a former neighbor for a number of years. And he had said to me that he'd like to see me in the legislature someday. And he says, I don't even know if you're Democrat or Republican, because he was Democrat.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm a Republican. He says, well, that's all right. He says, there's very little difference between Democrat and Republican. We all want the same thing. It's the way that we get there that differs. But in the end, you come together.
But with so much overlap, I'm really hoping that we can find bills to work on together.
I hope
and
so.
to find that common ground and that balance, because no matter where we went this year, we heard all those things about education and property tax, and you listed them all before.
Yeah, I think it was told to me just this weekend, actually last evening, I had received a phone call from a constituent on a different issue altogether. But and we were talking, and he's been involved with the county Democrat Party for some time up there. But he thought that given the change in the administration and the leadership that we have in the caucuses, that we should, if there's any year that we need to work on bipartisanship, this is probably the opportunity that we can get it done.
Well, there's all new people too, so there's no history,
no history,
you can just start fresh this
So
year.
that's it remains to be seen, of course. I think the first test of it will be, of course, when Governor Scott gives his budget address and delivers that, and I think we'll go from there and see what.
There's an intro for you on the budget.
Yeah, it leads right into our next question, which is, like you said, I think it's going to come down. You're going to see where the priorities are based on the budget, and that's typically the real test for a party and for a caucus and for the legislature about where their top priorities are. Those are the areas they invest in the state budget, right? So assuming that no new revenue is available, where would your caucus like to see investment in this year's budget, and where do you think savings or efficiencies may be found to support those investments?
Okay, well, I think, first of all, some investments in the budget certainly has to come in the area of economic development. As I said, I mean, we need more economic development than we've had in the past. And economic development is not a cheap thing to try to get going. However, there are cheaper ways of doing it, and that's involving the private business sector in working together. So I think right there, which anything that the state would invest in economic development should have a return, and in the way of expanding business or new businesses coming to the state with some good, hopefully good paying jobs, as well as work training programs that are coming out. There's serious shortages in such areas of the trades. I mean, even truck drivers.
Yeah, that's always been a big issue.
So that, and those are good paying jobs. I mean, so I think that would be an area. I think as far as efficiencies, Governor Scott has already announced that he is looking at merging the Department of Liquor Control and the Lottery Commission together, which was something that goes back to my first term. Former Representative Joe Baker and I talked about.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And we actually went in and talked with Governor Douglas about, at the time, of taking those two and merging them together. And then there's some other departments that you mentioned, labor.
Well, the big one was the Department of Labor merging with economic development. Because I think for years economic development has been so underfunded. We have never given it the support it needs. So maybe with the Department of Labor, that may give it the kick it needs, because it's of training and all the other things that companies need.
And this is just me talking, okay? I'm not, just my idea. Now I'm probably going to get shot tomorrow. It
won't be out for a couple of days. You'll be all right.
Is Department of Motor Vehicles to be merged with the Department of Public Safety?
Oh, that's been going for years. That does make a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that should be one. And in a number of states, and I certainly haven't done research on this to really recommend it or put it in draft form, but also corrections goes into the Department of Public Safety. A number of states
every time you bring up, there's so many arguments, pro and con. I know Jim Condos mentioned bringing regulations, Department of DMV under him because of all of the regulations. And so it really all depends on leadership. It really doesn't matter if there's some synergy between entities. If you got a good leader, they can make it happen.
Chris, probably
So-
you knew this as a former commissioner of DMV. DMV originally, the registration of motor vehicles and licenses was in the Secretary of
That's
State.
right. Well, that is in a lot of states.
Mm-hmm.
In Maine, that's the way it is,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of states they're under the secretary.
My dealer has some old registrations
right?
when he started,
Yeah.
and his father started the business, and
Yeah.
grandfather, and it came from
That's
Secretary
cool.
of State's office.
It's all about the leadership.
That's right.
Which reminds me, thank you very much for stepping up, Brian.
Well,
it's
thank
great
you.
to have you join us. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Right.
And let us know if there's some of those bills you're talking about. We'll be glad to let people know about them.
Sure.
Okay?
We will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I want to thank all of my guests for appearing on the show. I want to especially thank Ben Kinsley, who's here from Campaign for Vermont. As you know, I have partnered with Campaign for Vermont to do these shows, and which will give us a great deal of visibility throughout Vermont. So we're very pleased to be working with Ben. I would encourage each of you to check out your party's platform and the other two parties as well. I guarantee you that you'll find them very interesting. I also encourage you to attend any caucus meeting. As I've mentioned before, the House is the People's House. You can go there anytime you want, listen to debates on the floor, attend committee meetings and House caucus meetings. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. Have lunch in the cafeteria. Get to meet your legislators at lunch. And so that was it. I hope you enjoyed the show, give you a little insight as to what our political parties are up to this year. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.